Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the office hours. Today, we're breaking down, I'm going to be going over with you how we're going to piggyback on our one word. Last week, we discovered our one word, or at least the tools, worksheet, and resources on how we got to our one word. Now, we're going to talk about how do we sustain and how do we basically maximize that. And that's what we're going to basically covering strategies and tools. Now that we've got our one word from the one word worksheet, how are we going to actually integrate that on a daily basis and develop as a habit? How do we make it last when motivation runs out? We know this time of year, motivation might feel a little bit higher, but inevitably motivation runs out no matter who you are, where you are, whatever time of year. Eventually it's going to run out. So we're going to go over the strategies on how do you work through when motivation drops and how do you turn something into a habit. Again, that's what we'll cover first. Throughout this, I'll talk about some either different products or tools or things related to that. And then at the end, I will just kind of recap everything and then even highlight, again, some more tools that may be on the periphery of this, but diving into, again, the actionables and recapping with a clear takeaway. As always, feel free to comment. The first person to comment on each platform will get a $50 LOF gift card live. And if you're watching this on a replay and you don't see any comments, you're the first one to comment on it. You also will be up for a $50 gift card. You just screenshot that, send it to the email lifeofafighter@gmail.com, and boom, you got yourself a $50 gift card that you can now use even for the LOF Health Retreat. We have our retreat going on February 5th to 9th. We have about 10 open in-person spots left. We have, I think it's 10 or 12, the last guess. I lied, 17. So that means we have 8 spots left from the in-person dynamic, but we're also going to have a open remote session that you'll have access to that you can use your gift card to as well, which the $50 gift card will cover the entire remote pass. Okay, so with that being said, I just want to recap a little bit from last week. If you missed it, you don't want to go back, or just a little bit of a recap for a new season, as it were. I love those, like you missed the season or you're going into a new season of a show. They give you a little recap. The recap is I was talking about the one word workshop, which is based on a book that I got from Rogue Combat Club. That was the first place I was ever exposed to this strategy and this technique, and ultimately is leading you towards, instead of a New Year's resolution, instead of one particular goal, a identity theme and a word that you are going to live by for the year. My word for 2026 is devotion. And again, I can break down some of the details if you have questions on that, but more or less the idea to whatever our one word is going to be, it is going to navigate us. It's going to be our compass, our North Star throughout all situations in our day-to-day life, whether that's on we're building a goal, focusing on a habit, we have a dilemma in a life situation. I'll give you a perfect example. Actually, this is real time. So yesterday I realized I made a mistake. We booked houses and we booked for the health retreat, but I messed up on 2 of the locations, meaning I booked the wrong amount of people or what we can host. Thankfully, Gina, who's my partner in this, was able to catch it. And the team over at the Castle House was like, cool, don't worry, we'll hold it for you so you can book it. So I'm going to book that today. But my point is, I was like, should I just not book that second and third house and just pivot from there? But because it was like maybe financially stressful of like, now we got to come up with more money. I miscalculated it. The point is devotion. I am devoted to this health retreat. I'm devoted to the guests that are coming. I am devoted to the experience. So I will invest my resources to facilitating this experience. And that's why I really enjoyed having a word to guide me in those moments of uncertainty or stress or unease. So that's a little bit, again, of a recap on what we worked on last week and how that's coming into play and how do we remind ourselves that. So again, in those stressful moments, it can be almost forgotten. What's my word? How am I living this year? I'm living devoted. But this is where I tag in the tool. One of the biggest things I want to discuss today is from the book High Five Habit by Mel Robbins. And then there's another book, Atomic Habits. I want to say it's James Clear. I'm horrible at names. I'm pretty sure it's James Clear. But the point is Atomic Habits and High Five Habit are 2 books that we're going to pull from. And they reference this notion of creating an identity and then a habit around it. So check this out. I am devoted. See that little high five? This is something from the high five habit. It also kind of piggybacks on the atomic habits principle of creating an I am statement, which now creates an identity. So I am a devoted person. I am devoted. My word for the year is devoted. Every morning when I wake up, this is on my mirror. I actually pulled it off the mirror in our bathroom this morning. So when I first wake up in the morning, I have a pretty standard routine. I go to the bathroom every morning. It's the first thing I do. So I put this in the mirror, give myself a high five, and I say, I am devoted. So I am initially how I start my day, reinforcing. And again, this goes back into something I've talked about in the past, where it just can take as little as 2 minutes on a daily basis, or even 5 days a week, to rewire our brain versus 1 to 2 hours once per week. Which you think, well, the 2 hours once per week is more time dedicated to whatever the activity or thing is. It's going to rewire it, but it's actually the frequent exposure is more effective for our brain chemistry. So every day for just 30 seconds, I am devoted. Boom. I give myself a high five. Anyone that knows me knows also I'm a huge high fiver. I love high fiving. There's a lot of science behind the benefit of human connection, high fives, and then how we associate things to that. But I love using this from the High Five Habit book. And I'll save you guys if you don't want to read the whole book. Basically, trace out your hand, put an I am statement on it. That is something you want to do. Put it in the mirror or somewhere you're going to see every morning, but ideally your mirror, because then you look yourself in the eye, you give yourself a high five. It's going to usually have a positive response. Mel Robbins in the book talks about, have you ever given someone a high five frowning or crying or sad? Maybe initially, but after you high five, you tend to feel a lot better, especially because of the human connection. So that is the first part of this, like simple, immediate takeaway. If you already have a one word that you want to live by, trace your hand out, cut it out, write I am whatever your word is. And that is a huge investment already. I do that with the kids, actually. For all the kids, we had them, or I've had them last year cut it out. Now, my two older ones, I had them do this yesterday. My middle daughter, or my stepdaughter, she's going to do this when we see her next week. But I had them cut out their hand. They both ironically wanted to do I am kind. They wanted to embody kindness the rest of this year, which they already are kind kids. But I love that. And again, they high five. It was beautiful. This morning, before we left to go drop them off at their mom's, they were like, wait, before we go, I got to go do my I am high five. And they were really excited about it. So creating that kind of, again, habit, that routine can be really impactful and powerful. So being able to model it for our kids and our family as well, I think is awesome. So that's the one takeaway you can do. Have your I am statement. Once you've got it, cut it out, put it down, write it somewhere from a visual cue. Now I'm going to take a step back here. We'll go into some identity things related to that, why this is impactful, and also some other dynamics here that I think will be impactful to review. And that's the whole point of this type of a office hours or these types of content, is to be informative and to be insightful, but to be very clear and educational as well. And then highlight tools you can leverage there. And the idea here is, if we take a step back, it's the frequent exposure to it that is massive. Meaning every day I am getting reps of this change in consciousness and intention. I am devoted. I say it out loud every morning when I first wake up. Boom, I am devoted. High five. Now, the only caveat I will say to this is I recently traveled to New York. Now, if you are doing this, and I have a client that comes to mind that is traveling in February, right? And if you're starting a new habit and you're traveling within the first couple of weeks of that new habit, there can be some challenges around that, meaning you're disrupting your rhythm. But that's why I think it's so impactful. You can take this in your bag, your suitcase, whatever, put it on the mirror, wherever you go. If you travel a lot, that's why, dude, this is so accessible. And even if you forget to bring it with you, you could always do it wherever you are. You could get a piece of paper, trace it out, write your statement on it, hang it up. You can get the supplies. Amazon, have it delivered wherever you are, get it at a local store, pick up. It's so accessible. That's the other part to this, is making the strategy accessible as much as possible. And again, we're going to forget, I'm not perfect, but the goal I've found very effective, and I've seen back with different peer review journals that will, again, when we have the blog up of this, I will reference and have citations, because what's great is on last week's video, I had a replay on a short, and someone's like, cap, I call BS. And I was like, I got the receipt for you. Don't worry. So being able to literally send the citation, the reference from a meta-analysis to all this. So if you're questioning it, I think it's important to question this kind of stuff, but just know that I can show you guys references, and also go read it for your own. I think that's important and helpful. If you don't want to spend your time, cool. Hopefully you trust me or trust someone to be able to go to them to save you time. But hey, when in doubt, check the receipts, check the references, look at the citations, because who's to say that it's not just all being made up? And that's an important piece. So again, the idea is accessibility and being able to take a step back and expose yourself to it. So this is piggybacking on the habit we had from last week and chaining something together. We made our worksheet because that's sometimes, a lot of times we'll feel motivated in the new year, or not even in the new year, any time of year, whenever you're watching this, you may be excited about a goal or be excited about something. And then after a couple days, you're like, nah, you're not, there's not that same excitement. So we can maybe even say, hey, I got my one word. I did the worksheet. I asked myself those questions. What do I want more of? What do I want less of? What are patterns that I notice? Those types of questions. But then we don't do anything with it, right? So being able to now take the next step, make an I am statement, and then put it up somewhere, have visual. I also pair that one word with, I will put up the definition of devotion and put it on the back of my phone, the back of my background on my laptop. So I visually see it as a prompt, or have a picture of, let's say, my family or something I am devoted to, or some prompt that's a visual prompt that helps solidify that devotion. Now, on the other side, I mentioned another book, which is Atomic Habits. And in Atomic Habits, they use a great example of identity and how impactful. And I talked about this last week, right? And why this was so impactful, on why identity is something we want to focus on versus just the goal itself. And they used a great analogy in the book, which was, let's say you are a smoker, you smoke cigarettes, right? Also, that's like even background I have in like sensations and training around health coaching, which it's interesting to see where these things overlap. Is if your goal is like, oh, I'm trying to quit smoking. Notice the wording there. You are still identifying as a smoker. You're just trying to quit. And also trying, right, is the intentions of failure, as the great, I believe that's Yoda, right? Do or do not try. Trying is the intentions of failing. I think I'm paraphrasing Yoda on that one, but I want to say that's a Yoda quote. And the point is being able to shift our identity. That's what Atomic Habits invites. So being able to make an I am statement is a lot more effective. So if someone comes up to you on the street and says, hey, do you smoke, or do you want a cigarette? Say, no, I don't smoke. That's easier than saying, no, I'm trying to quit. Because then they know that, oh, maybe I can talk you into it. And even your own brain can recognize that, the pathways, the way you interpret it. Again, I'm oversimplifying a couple things. We can get more in details of what's actually happening from a neurochemical and a connective and a psychology perspective, but paraphrasing and oversimplifying a couple different things. Point is, combining these two books and some of the takeaways to refine it, basically to say, hey, make it simple, have an identity around it. For example, we talked to the kids yesterday because they like to play different games, obviously. And I think about when I was a kid, like playing, cops and robbers, or like cowboys and Indians, or whatever thing. Like I used to love being a Ninja Turtle. I used to love being Batman. I used to love being these pretend superheroes. And you could also pretend to be the criminal, and some people gravitate towards that. You could pretend to be the bad guy, and people can gravitate towards that. But what's interesting is we told the kids this. Oh, thanks. Appreciate the congrats. Oh, I see that first comment. So there's your $50 gift card. You can take a screenshot, claim it, send me on the email. I got you. And being able to be mindful of the things we want to pretend, because even if we are pretending, let's say they play a game, Angels and Demons, and they want to be demons, stuff. It's like, hey, do you know that if you continuously pretend and make those statements, that your brain and your actions are going to follow and align with that? So, quote unquote, pretend to be healthy. Say you are healthy. Say that's like a really proud, and it can kind of feel weird or hypocritical, and it kind of is somewhat playing off the fake it till you make it. I don't love the idea of faking anything. I don't love the idea of pretending to be something you're not. But what I do love and what I do appreciate is being able to create something that you want to identify with, and then creating and solidifying yourself to that identity, right? It's more manifesting. Yeah, exactly. It's the manifestation, as it were. And you can, when I was in my 20s, even in my teens, I was like, that's like foo-foo BS. I don't buy into any of that stuff. But for those of you that are into like the more, I want to see the analysis, I want to see the data, I want to see the research, I want to see the science, you can actually see the data that will back that. And one of my favorite studies on how impactful even the mind is, I tend to reference this quite a bit. Also, thank you for the whatever love that was in fan club stuff. I see you. Being able to reference a study that they did with an Olympic team, right? It's a analysis on PubMed, National Institute of Health, and being able to compare this group of Olympic athletes. They split up the group, right? And it was 3 groups. The control group, they didn't do anything. A group that worked out and did their regular training. And there was a group that didn't do any physical training. They just visualized. The group that visualized saw a 23% increase in performance. The group that did the physical training saw a 24% increase in performance. So break that down really quick. The difference of performance increase between the group that actually physically did the training and the group that just visualized the training was 1%. 1% difference, but they both saw a substantial and significant increase. That just shows you how impactful the brain is. And the group that didn't do anything obviously didn't see an increase at all. They saw a 0% performance increase. And the point of saying that is even being mindful of the I am devoted, I am kind, I am last year, I am relentless. The year before that, I am integrious. I have integrity. That was the word for the year, acting in integrity. So being intentional and also considering, what am I facing this year? And that's another part to the worksheet, right? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? What are the patterns I recognize? How does it serve me? And what could be a word that impacts all of this? So those are some of the things that, and again, this is a pretty fast, pretty simple, pretty quick one, but I thought it was impactful to piggyback off of, because last week, I'll be honest, when I was going through the worksheet, I also was going to pair this right afterwards, but I heard Hope struggling to go to sleep. Carrie was having a hard time with her. And I said, as a devoted father, and as a devoted partner, and as a devoted man, I don't feel right sitting here being somewhat distracted by hearing my daughter crying in the other room, my fiance having challenge with that, and then not being fully present for you guys. So I'm going to pause here and then I'll pick it up next week, which is exactly what we're doing right now. I thought it was actually quite interesting as far as the timing and an opportunity to just like literally implement what I was talking about. And then as you look for opportunities for your I am statement, you will find them and be able to live them. Like, for example, with Joshua Tree, I am devoted to this retreat. I am devoted to making it the best experience possible for everyone that's coming. I could have hypothetically not got the 2 other houses and jammed everyone into one house and the yurts that we have and the container converted kind of stay. But I am devoted to creating this amazing experience. So we will invest accordingly. And also I'm devoted to like owning my own. I made a mistake. I thought it was booked and it wasn't. So, and also I see that comment as well, Passaporte. So again, remember, wherever you are, you're the first person to comment, take a screenshot, send it to me. You'll get a $50 gift card. You can use it for our coaching. You can use it for our apparel. You can use it on our bands. You can even use it for our health retreat. Got time for that. And yeah, I appreciate the subscribe too. If you want to subscribe, again, if you aren't already, please follow, subscribe, like continuously. We always are playing with the times I go live. I know ideally it's best to have the same time every week, but I like to experiment, and life is quite adaptable, especially as a parent. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. Thank you for the repost. So being able to roll with the punches, as it were. Originally, I was going to maybe do this at 5:45 today, but yeah, I have a team meeting after this. I want to tag in with Carrie to support her because she's not working today. We got plans with the kids or not. There's a variety of things. Bringing it full circle. Now I want to share again some of the tools how we did this. Okay, it's super simple. Again, get a piece of paper, get construction. I wanted to highlight a couple. I have these Funsels, the acrylic markers. I also have the Fininello. Got my basic colored pencils. You can do either or. The girls have been really enjoying these Chalkola dry erase markers. The other one I like about these is I also have it on a whiteboard. That's the other cool thing too with a whiteboard, which I don't have behind me. It's actually in my storage unit, which we're going to be pulling out and cleaning out. And that's what we talked about last week, is closing out the year, right? So I have a storage unit that I had to get after a hurricane came through back in 2024. And it's been a year of me having this storage unit. We finally bought a shed we can move everything into. So I'm going to be cleaning out that storage unit, putting into the shed, getting everything organized and getting all my stuff out and being able to close out the year. Those are the activities. That's part of what I'm going to be doing today as well. And the point of saying all that is it goes back to I am devoted. So for me, that's why I was so dead set on this word. Think about where there might be opportunities in your life, where there might even be some gaps. Where do you want to bridge those gaps? So now you have a lot of clarity, right? Now let's talk about the continuous integration. Okay, so now you have your daily habit, high fives, but you're like, Mike, but I'm working. I go back to health, right? Health and wellness. And I was just talking to someone that's going to be, shout out to Mary, who's going to be hosting a breathwork workshop at our retreat in person and remotely. And we were talking about being able to see where there might be clutter, where we might have some blockages in our life, and being able to address that before we start adding new things. It's great if you want to transform your life and you want to, like, for example, one of the specialties we have with our 100-day coaching is 20 to 30 pounds of fat loss. That's great. Putting on 3 to 5 pounds of muscle. That's great. But here's what I invite. And I always like prep people with this and kind of filter out to make sure they're in a good place is, do you have the capacity to work out 2 to 3 times a week? Do you have the capacity to look at your nutrition? Do you have the capacity to meal prep at least once a week? Or do you have the resources to buy meal prep oriented food or like a subscription service, something like that? If you're not at that place, that's okay. But this is not going to be the time. You get to address those things first. Address where there's gaps in your life first. If you don't have the time or the bandwidth, or at least that's your story, that you have no more time to work out, let's address that before we start getting into a program. Okay. And if you want support, sure, that's what we like will preemptively prep people for into their coaching. But the key here is clearing space too. And that goes back to the identity. If we have like, I am devoted in the way I view things when I don't want to do something, like, you know what? I'm a devoted man though. I get to show up in a way that feels devotional. And the other side is I'm not perfect. So the goal I found effective and backed by different meta-analysis and studies and peer-reviewed journals is 80% adherence. And even in our own organization, anecdotally, working with now thousands of people, if you could be at least 80% adherent to the plan, you will have progress. It may be slow, but there will be progress and you will sustain things. If you could be 85, 90, 95% adherent, you're just going to see an increase of that. 100% adherent, obviously. But the key is, if you're shooting for 100%, the likelihood of you sustaining it is impossible, right? It's just not there. So being realistic with that as well becomes impactful. So I'm going to pause for a second, grab a sip, see if I have any questions, and then also kind of recalibrate where we want to expand upon this. Because I kind of, again, already touched on the key points here from the recapping of our one-word worksheet, getting to our one word, how that's impactful, and then ultimately now knowing we have our one word, what are we going to do with that one word? What does that look like? And the power of, again, taking that one word and creating an identity around it. Whether it's with, start with, and here's my recommendations or recaps on where you can take action. Get the one word book. If you haven't already, then you can also get our one word worksheet for free on our blog. You go to the website, we have our blog, you can download it, gain access to it. Then go with the High Five Habit. I think that's a great one. And then also go to Atomic Habits from there. These are all books, if I'm being super honest with you, I've gotten on Audible. I do have Atomic Habits as a printed version, but all these books I have on Audible. I personally am a biased fan to Audible. I love listening to Audible. I love collecting data because then I can measure how long I've been listening to things, how long it takes. I allocate a goal every month. I'm devoted to my intelligence and my growth, where I listen to or consume at least one book per month. That's 12 books a year. That's over 100 books in a 10-year frame. That might not be impressive to anybody, but that's a consistent, sustainable goal, a relentless goal I know I can maintain. And then what I also like to do is now lately I've been piggybacking on this. This is something I've learned from doing things like 75 hard, do those challenges. I like to do those challenges from time to time, but here's the reality. If you go through 75 hard, for those of you, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear this. Were you able to sustain everything you did in 75 hard? I'm confident to bet you haven't. Now, it doesn't mean you're wrong for that, by the way, because let's lay out what 75 hard is. 75 hard's you work out twice a day, every day for at least 45 minutes. One of those workouts has to be outside. Now, again, a workout could be walking, for example, but an hour and a half every single day for physical training can be a lot to commit to for the rest of your life, especially if you're a parent, travel, whatever. It's possible, but it can be a lot. Then you're reading 10 pages a day. Again, by itself, not that much. That's actually very doable. My goal is 5 pages a day. That's my buy-in. Not that crazy, but it's an effective baseline. And I enjoy it. Some days I do more. Some days I miss it because I'm 80% adherent. That's the goal. The other is drinking a gallon of water per day. And the other is being able to pick whatever nutrition plan and sticking to it 100%. And again, these are all great things for a short window of time. 75 days, though, can be a lot. So the reason I highlight this is when you do 75 hard, is that an identity or is that a challenge, right? So if you create an identity around this, like I'm a devoted person, it's easier to stick to 75 hard. But if you're just doing 75 hard by itself or any whatever challenge, any goal, it's going to be a lot harder. Life's going to happen. You're going to have challenges, resistance points. You're going to have old patterns that may show up. That's why in the worksheet, we look at what are some patterns that you notice and being able to create strategies on overcoming those. What are some things? And again, I was talking about this on a call prior. If you are trying to intellectually approach something, right, and you consume all the information, but you're just not in a place, whether it's from a healing perspective or addressing what you're consuming, not just food, but media, who you're listening to, who you're talking to, what types of video you consume. Like, I'd like to hopefully think, and you guys can give me feedback on this too, the stuff I put out there is going to be a positively impactful consumption of information or connection, at least. Versus I even find myself, I'm fully transparent, sometimes late at night, I watch crazy weird videos on YouTube. I go down these weird rabbit holes, which is like quite the opposite, especially when you want to sleep. You don't want to go like, I'll watch like police chase videos at like 1 a.m. for whatever reason. And that's like old patterns I notice in my own self that come up. So I immediately get to address it if I want to, or I indulge it. Or sometimes, if I'm being honest, I'm kind of intentional with that. It's like weight training. I will like to use those things and like look at like all the different aspects of society and be able to become strong enough or relentless enough, that was based on my word last year, to be able to even have that exposure and be able to work through and still be able to go to sleep, still be able to work on things. Now, again, that might be a misinformed perspective. I might even be selling myself a story, as it were, to enable, but that's my at least perspective on it. And I have awareness to it and looking at patterns, saying, okay, but if I do want to sleep, and I notice I've been staying up later the last couple of days or whatever since vacation, I'm going to address that pattern. I'm going to be devoted. Again, I am devoted to my health, to my family, to my life, to my goals, to my partner, to my children, and be able to say, now I'm going to drink my magnesium. I'm going to journal. I'm going to read before bed. And I'm not going to watch these crazy police chase videos and like keep me up till 2 a.m, which for me personally has been working out. Also shifting some of my like nutritional habits, experimenting with things, like to do all that fun stuff. So anyways, I'm going to pause there, see if we got questions, and then dive in potentially a little bit deeper or expand upon this idea. And I want to just, again, highlight the importance of the identity from all this, creating a source of identity when it comes to your habits and your routines. Because the reality is goals are fleeting, motivation's fleeting. Identity is at the core of this. And that's what's going to build your habits and your routine. So think about in anything, even if you routinely sleep in, think about this. Let's do the contrast or counter position, right? If you routinely sleep in, you have an identity as a person that sleeps in, that you don't have to listen to your alarm. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it, right? I talk to people all the time, and I've personally been there myself. Oh, I'm always late, or I'm just not good with this, or whatever those statements are, especially because I do ADHD coaching and as someone that has ADHD myself, and or at least can relate to the symptoms around that. You're creating an identity, and does that identity you're creating serve you? So be mindful of the words and the perspective you're putting out there. How much weight and power are you giving to them? That's the one thing I will continuously invite for you. So knowing that, what do you get to choose? Pick one word. It can be a lot. Like, again, a fun data point that came up in a continuing education course I saw was, on average, the average American or the average human will have about 200 nutritional choices on a daily basis. 200 nutrition choices every single day. Think of how much that chips away at our bandwidth and energy we have. Then think about, okay, all the other decisions. We're making hundreds and thousands of decisions on a daily basis, consciously or unconsciously. So how much energy does that take? And if you have an, again, identity or a statement that you come back to that helps you navigate that, it reduces the amount of bandwidth you have to allocate, how much tax you're paying on that transaction, on that piece, right? So being able to have that identity is impactful. And when in doubt, ask, communicate, share. That's why I love doing these office hours. So if you're uncertain, share that in the comments or let us know. Like, I want to know about that. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretty much wrap it up from here. This is a little bit of a quicker one. Normally, I'm doing our office hours 45 minutes to an hour, but I feel like I've gotten the point. And if I'm being honest with you, if I went any further, I feel like I would just be like reiterating, echoing the same point. The one thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to hang out on Amazon and TikTok here for maybe another 10 or 15 more minutes to just go over some of the products that I have that I think are related to this that can be helpful. But other than that, I'm going to bring it home. If you guys are watching on anywhere else besides TikTok and Amazon, I would say hop on over here. You guys can stay tuned. But I appreciate y'all. I hope everything's going well where you're at. And again, remember, we still have for Joshua Tree, that's February 5th to February 9th in California, Joshua Tree, California, for our health retreat, our lifestyle retreat. We have 8 spots open for in-person, and we have pretty much unlimited remote passes. Like you can join in, but get it now. And I'm looking forward to having it because we have so many awesome workshops, from breath work to exercise to mobility to mindset to even what I would consider manifestation to actual creative art, into other types of additional educational pieces to build on this lifestyle. And then the real key is, like, when you come in person, the connection we're going to have, the people that are going to be there are going to be pretty awesome. So highly recommend snagging one of those in-person spots. If you're thinking about it, get on it. And if you're not certain, the cool thing is now we have, with our coaching, the ability to leverage your insurance for a lot of this stuff. So if you're interested, again, check out our website, hop on over. We'll go into that, but that's going to do it, at least on the podcast and the live streaming on the office hours. Hang around on TikTok and Amazon. And again, if you guys aren't following and liking, subscribing, all that good stuff already, please do. If you also find value in this, please share this. I appreciate those that have already reposted and shared, and to kind of invite people to check this out. But yeah, I appreciate y'all. I'll see you on the next one. I will be back again live during the week. I do my body doubling, whether it's with workout, meal prep, or working sessions. We'll be doing body doubling sessions during the week. But again, they're kind of like pop-up style. So you want to make sure you're subscribing and following for that so you can stay tuned. And I'll see y'all there.